Morning guys, welcome back. I'm out at Richmond Lowlands, just heading up the mountains today, and I thought I may as well get up early and swing out to Richmond. There was a bit of a forecast for fog, and there's this really pretty dam with this windmill behind me, which is always a favourite location out here, so I thought I'd swing out here on the way out and grab a couple of images of this dam and then head up the mountains today. I'm heading up around Glen Davis area. Hopefully that we'll get some clear skies tonight, but because I haven't really scouted up that way before, I'm going to head up during the daylight hours obviously, and see if I can find a nice location for a Milky Way Pano tonight. I know there's some really big cliff faces and that sort of thing up there, so hoping that one of those will do. In the meantime, might just do a bit of exploring through the day. Stay tuned. I decided that 35mm was a little bit too wide, so I've whacked on the 70 to 200 and I'm sitting at 70mm now, and that's getting a real nice composition. I've zoomed right into about 135mm and it really simplifies the image. I get this really nice, just the windmill and the reflection of the windmill. Cut out all this messy foreground in here, but the one problem I'm having is that there's so much fog about. Because I'm trying to focus on something that's 100 meters away, autofocus is not working, so I'm having to manually focus on the windmill, which is fine. It's near enough to infinity focus anyway, not a big deal, but just something worth noting if you're trying to shoot something far-ish away in fog. Forget autofocus, not going to happen. That's sort of my composition there, which is at, as I said, 135mm. Looking at this, that's at 28mm. I'll zoom into 70 on this. You still get some of this foreground, which is a bit messy. So I've zoomed in beyond that to get rid of that and just focus on the windmill. So I was just about to head off and I've noticed just down there in the foreground there's a little bit of yellow flower, maybe St. John's wort or something like that. And I was set up over here trying to get away and above the foreground to isolate it, the windmill in the background. But having spotted that, I might grab the camera and move over and try and grab that interesting little bit of foreground. Yeah, still have the issue of can't focus on the windmill because it's too foggy, but I am able to focus on this little bit of foreground, St. John's wort. So I'm going to have to use manual focus, or autofocus on the St. John's wort is fine, but then I'm going to have to manual focus to get the windmill, because I will have to focus stack this to get it sharp, shooting at 180mm. Unfortunately, I lost sound here, so had some issues with the microphone. It does come back later in the video, but for now I'm going to have to do a bit of voiceover. I'm just explaining now that I'm basically at Lithgow Blast Furnace Park, which is obviously some historical ruins of the old blast furnace, and just having a look around, seeing what compositions I can identify. And as I walked around the back of the ruins, I found this giant sheet of metal. I assume it's a cap of some old silo or tower or something like that. And there's a nice little pathway leading to it, so I decided to make a composition out of that. Driving up the highway on the way to Glen Davis, saw the sign to Portland, and I know that there's these couple of silos here, so I thought I better duck in for a look. And when I got there, I was looking around for a composition, the first thing I noticed was this table and the wood grain through the table that could potentially act as a leading line leading out to the silos. Absolutely magic little spot, and the grey clouds on the day around it actually make it a sort of more suitable composition, if anything, because it matches the silo well. So I've arrived just outside the town of Glen Davis, pulled up outside town next to this little dam with obviously one of these big mountains that the area is synonymous with in the background, thinking two reasons. Number one, a sunset, and number two, a potential Milky Way shot. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce the name of the mountain because I'll get it wrong. But I was looking at this composition for a sunset rather, and also potentially as a Milky Way. If I could get one spot for two different compositions, that would be ideal, but I'm gonna have to suss it out and see. So using the PhotoPills app, I was using the Night Sky AR feature, which is a really handy feature. It shows you the positioning of the Milky Way at any particular given time, with obviously direction, and you can use your phone screen to see how it would look above other things. That spot by the side of the road, the tail of the Milky Way was going to come down on top of the mountain, which is not what I wanted. I was more after something that would arch over the top of that mountain. And so I drove around through one of the laneways out to the back of Glen Davis there, got it out again, and found a much more favourable sort of positioning for the mountain under the arch. So this ended up being my preferred location for the Milky Way. I still had to go and find somewhere for a sunset, but as you can see on that screen, the Milky Way arch there was going to be exactly what I was after. Just had to stop and jump out. It's not every day you see something like this. It's just cruising around, exploring some of the back roads around Glen Davis, and looking for a sunset spot, looking for just anything of interest really, and yeah, giant pink snail. Sure. So I've driven up this back road, and I just thought I'll jump out because it's quite a good viewpoint to show you around. So behind me over there is basically Glen Davis. That's the cliffs that surround the little township of Glen Davis. And if you look over that way is Petoni's Crown. There's some pretty area. There's really a lot going on. It's very sunny in my eyes. as you can see now with the sun, the skies are clearing, so fingers crossed they will keep doing so and we'll get some stars tonight. I'm probably just gonna, it's only I think 3:30 odd, gonna go chill out for a couple of hours and then probably perch up for a sunset and then head to that spot down that laneway for some Milky Way stuff later on. Looks like off in the distance out there might be a fire. I assume it'd just be back burning. It's so wet out here, there's no way it could be a bushfire. So yeah, I guess some back burning going on out there, which is actually good to see. It actually makes sense, because I've seen when I went through Portland earlier and also even through Lithgow, heaps and heaps of fire trucks on the road. So it makes sense that there's some burning off, or hazard reduction as they call it, activities going on today. So I'll bet that's what's going on that property just behind me, and also over the back in the national park behind Glen Davis. So we're only a few minutes off sunset now. I did have grand plans of stopping and getting these cliff faces behind me with the last of the light on them, but unfortunately, if you look over to the west there's a big dirty cloud sitting on the horizon, so the sun is completely hidden behind them. There's a tiny gap, it might pop back through, but pretty unlikely. And the foreground I had in mind down the road there means you don't get to see the lit up side of these cliffs. So I have abandoned that one, come down to this one here, but it's very, very messy. Don't know how visually appealing a foreground like that is. I mean, that's nice, but that's not. So yeah, I don't know, potentially something like that, a little bit of machinery there. Something like that might work maybe as a composition. The gate as a leading line, a bit of machinery, and then the cliffs. But it all depends on what's going to happen with that light over there. Picked up that composition I talked about before, but we're relying on some light from the west hitting that peak, and unfortunately, as you can see, or maybe you can't, but that's where the sun is, directly behind those clouds. So I might hang out here for another 5, and then I'll shoot off to that little laneway and set up for Astro. Right, hope you can see that. I lost sound earlier, had microphone issues, so basically what I'm trying to get is a Milky Way Pano. So you can see the tip of the Milky Way will come down there, sort of down that road, rise up over this mountain in front of me, and then come back down over this way. So that's what I'm going for tonight. I'm down here nice and early so that I can get some shots. Hold on while I grab this. Down here nice and early tonight so I can get some shots of the mountain before it turns pitch black. And then I'll hopefully lay the Milky Way over the top after the fact. So I'm going to set my tripod up, do a pano sort of nowish, get some, turn that off, get some foreground colour or detail, so before it's too dark, and then hopefully all I have to do is, once it gets to maybe 8:30, is shoot the Milky Way as it rises over the mountain, or as it starts to set over the mountain rather. So yeah, that's the plan, and hopefully the microphone has worked this time. But yeah, as I said, or I said before, but you may not have caught it, I'm just out near Glen Davis, just down one of the laneways there. There's mountains like this one behind me, all over the place out here. It's a really picturesque spot. If I take you over this way, actually. So that's the township back that way. As you can see, cliff faces everywhere. And yeah, really nice area. So hopefully these clear skies that have just showed up on sunset hang around through the night and we get some Milky Way. What I've done now is I've used the PhotoPills app to guesstimate how high the Milky Way is going to be above that mountain. I've then shot at f11, so I got everything in focus, a panorama around the mountain. Then got the camera left in place, just here. And once it gets to probably 8:30, I'll go ahead and shoot a panorama of the stars above the mountain. And hopefully, fingers crossed, the software is clever enough to stack it all together. And I end up with a really pretty panorama Milky Way over the mountain. Fingers crossed it works. Good morning. So this is camp last night in Ben Bullen State Forest, and we're probably, I don't know, not far, maybe 10 minutes before sunrise now. And I've camped in this spot for a reason, and that reason is I know there's a cool little lookout just here. Surprisingly cold last night. It's actually bloody freezing right now, but I'm just going to wander up to this lookout and catch the sunrise. It's probably too dark to tell, but there's some really cool sandstone pagodas just down there. In there. Anyway, I'm gonna put you down and get out my camera and grab a few images. It's not going to be anything amazing at this stage because it's very clear, so we might get just a little bit of colour on the horizon. That'll be about it, but we might get some nice light on this rock at least, so I think that'll be the aim. I'm going to go ahead and put a graduated filter on because the sky is very bright and the foreground is very dark, or the ground, not just the foreground. I think the sun's just peeking over the horizon, so I've got to be quick here. But the composition I've decided on, down here there's a little bit of a lip, as you can see behind me down there, a little bit of a lip in the rock, and it's got some nice red coloured rocks in there. So I've, as you can see, set the camera up nice and low, and to get that sort of overhang makes that rock look significantly bigger than it actually is. And I'm quickly gonna maybe run up the top there because the sun is just peaking, and I might try and get a sun star or something. So that's the sun pretty much up now, and yeah, this is the composition I've stuck with here. Tried to, if that focuses, give it a sec, yeah, there. Yeah, stuck with that composition, sun star in the corner and just catching that light hitting the edge of this little overhang here, and obviously getting in super close to it. So getting super close to that makes it look a lot bigger than it is. I mean, we're talking about an overhang that's maybe foot and a half tall, but in the image it's going to take up all the image. It's going to look like this big rock overhang, so a little bit of deception there. But yeah, worth getting out of bed for. Nice little morning, and that sun is lovely and warm. God, it's cold. Well, that's sunrise done. Head back over to camp and get some brekkie on, pack up, and then decide what the rest of the day is going to bring, I guess. Well, don't know if I'll go for a drive or if I'll just head off. Either way, brekkie is priority. Just cruising along the track here, and I've noticed this little rocky outcrop. I think if we climb up onto it, might have a cool view across the valley. Look at that. Yeah, pretty cool little spot, not a bad little look at. Looks like yeah, there's quite a deep little canyon or pass or something down that way. Looks like it's sheer cliffs all around. Don't know how you get down to it. But yeah, well worth a stop. Nice spot. Righto guys, that's the tar. End of this trip. We got some really nice conditions yesterday with those clouds. It actually made photography possible throughout the entire day. And then I got a nice clear sky last night for those stars. So yeah, really nice conditions. Beautiful clear sunrise this morning. Very cold last night. God, it was cold. But that's it. So thanks for watching, and see you next time, wherever that will be.